Welcome to Duncan Thorin Shield's YouTube channel. I managed to con Duncan into convincing his friend to pay me thousands of dollars as a professional Counter-Strike player, so maybe he can convince you that some of his analysis is correct.
Before we get into picking who's going to make it through and try and go for the diamond coin, how about picking up some gamer Supps? There's never been a better time to, because for the next 48 hours, you can get free shipping worldwide on orders over $30 using my code Thorin, Thorin. You can't forget the name, can you? At gamersupps.gg. Great time to pick some up. I would recommend flavours like Guacamole Gamer Fart 9000. It's actually strawberry and lime and delicious. Citrus lemonade, self-explanatory. Dragon fruit punch, sort of like that smooth Asian fruit or whatever that's kind of like blends in pretty nicely. Watermelon ice is a classic. Acai, blueberry. Another good one. Right, obviously last time at PGL Antwerp, everyone laughed, didn't they? Because I did really badly on the coin and loads of teams that you'd never expect to went through, and then the G2s, the Vitalities of the world didn't go through in the next phase either. And so actually, like a lot of people, I never got anywhere close to a good coin. And in the past ones, if you don't know, I also have never gotten a good coin because I've only been doing the coins since I think Stalag of Berlin. And famously, I worked at two of those majors, so I never did the last challenge, which is like view a game in the playoffs or something. So I never got the coin, even when I actually picked the winner of the tournament and got loads of them right. Like I've had times I've got 7 or 8 right. So we're going to go into this one. So, okay, if you remember what we do here, I'll explain to everyone again, because there's a little bit of nuance here. So obviously you only need to get 5 out of this potential 9 correct. But the problem is the 7 on the bottom is just to get through with any possible game score. The 2 at the bottom, 3-0 and 0-3, you have to get those exactly right. Even if that team does go through, for example, the 3-0, but they're not 3-0, you don't get anything for that. And so it's really tricky. Like I would say the hardest one to pick is often 0-3 because it's affected by what draw you get, and if you just get an opponent that plays your maps, you have a chance in a BO1. 3-0 is pretty hard. The bigger problem with 3-0 is just that you're risking one of your teams that can go through. So as I've explained in the last few of these for past majors, the meta I've come up with, a lot of other people understand the meta. You don't really pick a team that's going to go 3-0 and one of the tournament favourites, because if they drop even one BO1 or have a really close best of 3, or Lord forbid, save anything against a lesser opponent, you might end up looking like a fool that'll ruin one of your bona fide guaranteed picks, and you've got to get your 5 right. So what most people do is they just pick the rest of theirs, then they just put like a silly one in there and hope for a miracle. But as I showed from PGL Stockholm onwards, I actually think the move that you do is this. Bearing in mind 8 teams are going to go through and you're picking 7 down here to advance, logically here's what I think you do. You pick your best 7 in the bottom part so that you get the 5 no matter what, because who cares about the 3-0? It doesn't change anything about the coin. And what you try and do then is you pick one of your 3-2 teams that's borderline, so your last team, your 8th team basically, and you put them in the 3-0. Now, even then, I think there's a slight tweak to that, which is I just go and I pick the teams I think are going to be 3-2, and then I pick which one of them could sort of just wake up one day and fluke a 3-0 and go through. So famously at PGL Stockholm, I got that by picking FaZe Clan before they had ROPS, because with their veterans, with Carrigan's calling style, with the map pool they always had in that team, I thought, you know what, that could happen. They could have a fluky performance. Now, I didn't know Carrigan would frag out, and that's how they do it, but that is one of the things that happened. I think he can roll off my top frag the map. So that's kind of how I've tweaked the meta of how to do these pick'ems. So let's go through. As usual, I'll just introduce all the teams, and then we'll get into the picks. So OG is obviously the team not with LXCB. This is the Nexus squad that got in Fiku and got in Neofrag, and they've shown decent firepower, and Dexter most crucially, but quite haven't really been as good as maybe people hoped with the roster strength and raw firepower that they have, which is why actually I think some questions still remain around Nexa for the real analysts, not the bozos who were like, I made a major instead of Nick. Who cares, mate? Yeah, everyone from America did as well. Do you think they're awesome too? Vitality has obviously just made themselves look silly in the Blast Showdown, but it doesn't really matter. It was online play. It was some BS anyway. I actually think Vitality's look pretty solid online in general. They've had a few flaws here and that, maybe stopped them being the best team, but Ziwoo's incredible. And they just look like a team that they're almost completed at this point. They've got the vets, they've got the young players, they've got the coach, they've maybe even got the right IGL. Evil Geniuses look better than they probably have the rep for, because everyone thinks they're going to be trash from the old NA line. They're not. The Neelan led lineup's all right. The Hex guy's, I think he's average to below average, but whatever. The team finally has some decent fragging. Cirque and Breeze have maps that are good. Even so, expecting to be pretty shit here. Cloud9 is obviously the old Gambit roster. Always should be a strong team. I know people are scared because the last time, what happened with them? I don't care. I think this team's gradually getting it together, but the key word is gradually. And it feels like this, I think they're way too good to not go through here. Big is obviously, I got the weird stand-in scenario, but as you saw at the RMR, they're just a team that makes it hard to play. Like, them and Outsiders, for me, are the two underdog teams that might not even get through, potentially. But they are the teams that will make the other ones really work hard for it and probably score an upset on at least one opponent. Big in case one opponent. Outsiders maybe a bunch. I'm probably going to take Outsiders to go through, but they won't be going deep in the tournament, probably. BNE, everyone raves about them every bloody time. I think they're just all right. Like, look, the map pool seems pretty legit. I'll give them that. I just don't buy that many of these players will be like future stars. I think they're just all right. I don't despise them, but I think they're kind of a borderline team here. Mouse, similar story. Probably got a slightly better class of players. Some of those players do look like they could be good, very good one day, but Tosh just doesn't do it as well on LAN. Xertion's sort of getting his game going, but he hasn't had enough time yet. JDC's all right, but he's not some big banger. Frozen is very good. The problem is he's not quite star/superstar status, even though the stats sometimes look like he should be. And Dexter, I think, is questionable as an IGL. Then you got 9Z. I call him 9Z because I'm from England. 9Z, whatever they call him there. The South American team. The interesting thing is, map pool actually looks pretty decent for this team. Another team I'll give fair play to. They can probably go a lot of places. So maybe they're a sleeper to cause some upsets here with BNE. Gamer Legion fragged out in part because the IGL is kind of underrated. He used to be a Mouse Academy, NXT. And obviously, A-Core went ham. I don't know how much of that will continue. So I'm kind of not favouring them that much. I think their map pool's a little bit whack. Outsiders has a whack map pool, but it's just Outsiders. Like the way they play every map is the way they play the best map. So they always have a chance against a lot of opponents. And so you just get blown out of the server. Fame's been fragging way better than you'd probably expect for a newer player. James is pretty legit still in this team. Flit he's not like a superstar player, but he can certainly frag out. The interesting thing about this team, it doesn't need a superstar. It's got one of those cohesive styles that I don't enjoy watching them play, but I love seeing what they do to opponents, though. Then you got 00 Nation, the Cold Zero team. Like, I do think this team's actually not bad. I am a little bit questionable about their map pool. I think they might have some issues here. Also, they've been playing against lesser opposition. But they've got some all right players. I do think some of these players could be some of the future of Brazilian Counter-Strike. I think maybe a little bit too early in the project. Furia eternally disappoint for the last year or so. I do think art style's fallen off a cliff. Kesarato's still a banger. Yuri's still pretty good generally. Safe isn't as good as he should be, but they don't look like they play around him. I think this is just a bit of a flawed team at the moment, but obviously you'd expect them in a phase like this to be able to cruise through. Fnatic's probably the sleeper of this entire stage. There's a world where they 3-0, by the way. I actually think Mezzi's done a great job as an IGL. The team shouldn't even be that good. None of the names on paper are supposed to be that good, but you just look at them, they just perform. It reminds me a little bit of a better Copenhagen Flames at Hooksy, so I think there's a lot I like about this team, and again, they're kind of a sleeper. IHC, I expect very little from. Look, some of those players are veterans. They played quite a long time, but I just don't think I can expect anything from them as a region. I don't expect much of them good practice. Imperial are mainly here just to see who's going to shit their pants when it's the 3-2 game. So as a result, I'm not really favouring them at all here. Again, what fucking map pool? They've got like Overpass, and that's about it. They even can lose to that on. They could have lost a call. No, there's loads of teams. They almost lost in the best of 3 to that Nouns team, mate. Like, this is, I think this team is mad overblown. And all this nonsense about, but the home crowd. Why do you never do those picks for any other region, by the way? Why, when we go to Denmark, do you not pick like Bacchus Astralis to go to the final? No one else does that in any other region. But magically, you all worship Brazilian fans and have to pretend like they use a fucking spirit bomb from Dragon Ball Z and power falling up. They don't. Like, they'll have a few halves, and the odd map in a best of 3 where they'll look good. But otherwise, they could easily go 0-2 in the BO1s. They could easily lose to, like, the majority of these teams in the best. In fact, they would lose to the majority of these teams in the best of 3. There's only really, like, the underdog factor of, like, but BNE might get nervous, or or Mouse might get nervous, or Gamer Legion, and they might get nervous, or who knows about if Fnatic are a little bit scared. Like, obviously they'd beat like Greyhound and fucking IHC, EG maybe. Like, yeah, I can see them beating these teams. So what we'll do first of all Let's pick the 0-3, and that one's easy for me. I'm going to give IHC respect, and I'm going to say it's going to be Greyhound. I think the problem is Imperial could just fluke one map win, and I'll say, like I say, there's certain opponents I think they psychologically have the edge on, so I'm taking Greyhound. There's nothing for me to believe in this team. I don't believe in Australian Counter-Strike, quite frankly. I was just a fan of Renegade/100 Thieves players, so I don't really give a monkeys about these guys. They can go 0-3, fair enough. Now, in terms of the other teams, let's just get all the big favourites out the way, shall we? Vitality is way too good for this phase. Even so, you can never guarantee the 3-0, but I just think there is no chance they go out in this phase. This is where I think they're a much better team than G2. So yeah, I was shocked that G2 went out in the RMR, but if Vitality is absolutely going through, maybe 3-1, we'll see, but I'm saying they're definitely getting out. I'd be surprised if they even go to the 5th game. Then I'm going to go, let's see, who else are we taking here? Quite frankly, I've got to take Cloud9. I know some people are like, oh, but what about the nerves of the fight? And they didn't win anything yet. I mean, they did win IEM Dallas, but I know that tournament feels a bit wax. It doesn't feel like they properly won. Doesn't matter. This is like a fucking Swiss system, mate. They've got way too good a map pool, way too good set of stars. I even think Nafani is a solid IGL. He's not like some elite IGL. I haven't ever had him in my sort of top 3 or 4. But I tell you what, he is definitely better than the majority of the IGLs in this group. So I'm not really worried about that. Those two are a lock for me. I'm taking those easy business. I've already got 2 right there. Then I'm going to go, that's right, I am going to go with outsiders because I actually think their style of play is so tricky. Yeah, you can get them on a bad map. Yeah, you can just blow them away every now and then. But mate, they know how to drag a game into the mud and get you dirty. And you're a team that normally wants to play clean and smooth. And that's what they make a nightmare. And that style is so hard to deal with. And I tell you what, if they get to a bunch of elimination games, this is the team, by the way, that could go 0-2, then just torture opponent after opponent in those best of 3s and just keep breaking people's hearts. And everyone going home going, he can't keep getting away with it in terms of Jim. But you know what? He can. And he does because unfortunately, apparently until I coach a team, no one's ever going to figure out how to shut this guy down. I know how to shut down beta oppers. But the joke is everyone else can't. And I've said beta there, not beta. Beta. Shout out, you know who. Then we're going to go. See, here's the funny thing. I feel like you probably have to go Furia after that. As much as they underwhelm and all the rest, that's like in a playoff setting. That's when they're supposed to kick in the gate. In this kind of phase, their players are just too good not to make it out. Like, I'm already feeling super confident, like at least 3 of these 4, if not all 4 that I've already gotten. Then we're going along. I actually think this is where it gets interesting. Because the problem with someone like Fnatic is there is a world where they could betray me, but they could also be a 3-0 team. Like the teams on paper that I feel like would be good 3-0 teams would be like OG, Fnatic, and maybe Mouse. Like these are the teams that have the firepower to potentially bullshit it in 3-0, but probably shouldn't. So if we're picking from these, I think we'd probably take Mouse just to be safe. Like, let's be real. They could lose BO1s, but they'd beat a lot of these teams in a BO3, so we'll take Mouse as well. This is actually one of the easier ones, in my opinion. Antwerp was way harder because everyone's form was all fucked and some people's lineups had only played like one event, one LAN, barely any match. So I'm not that worried about that overall. And obviously you had people coming from NA and all the other regions where it's like, have they even played LANs yet? Then I'm going... Like, cause the thing is, there's also, like, it's hard to say Big will do in a best of 3 against most teams. So it's hard to put them as a 3-0. So if I end up picking them, the problem is I do like Big, but I just don't, I like them as a big underdog. I don't like them as a team that's supposed to get through. So the problem is out of the teams that are left, yeah, that's what's tricky, right? How can I not pick Big at this point? Like it's Fnatic, OG, and Big. So then maybe I'm going OG. Who do I think is more likely to 3-0, OG or Fnatic? Because in theory, I actually think stylistically, Fnatic can match up against almost anyone in the BO3 and could go 3-0. I think OG has the firepower, but I just don't believe in the IGL as much. So I'm taking OG here. By the way, everyone's going to tell you OG's not that good. Mate, that roster, top to bottom, has some really good fucking aimers in it. Like, it's a mad like, it would be like a top 5 skill roster in this particular phase, in my opinion. I know everyone else going, what about Game Elite? I don't care. I just don't care, mate. Like, show it to me, prove it to me, and then I'll care. So then we'll ask 2 teams. Basically, I'm deciding who the 3-0 team is now. Because I think it's more likely Fnatic get through, but I think there's a world where Big can... Here's the problem. It's less likely Big goes through, and it's also less likely they 3-0. So what I'm going to do here is, appropriately, I'm going to do a big balls play, and the big balls players obviously pick Big down here and say they get through somehow. Listen, Tabson is really good. They do have a team. Saracen can go off against most of these teams. Yes, the map pool is dodgy, but the style, they're a bit like outsiders. Their style does work on most maps, and they can play together as a unit. They can get enough T rounds. They've always got the smokes and stuff. I actually think even though they've got a worse roster, GOUD and the rest of them will put in the hours. So I sort of low-key do believe in Big to go there. I'm actually going to say that, and so I'm going to say fuck it. Even though I'm risking, like, let's be real, they're probably just going through normally. But because they are a team that could go, well, here's the problem. Could I swap them for OG, though? That's the problem. I'm gambling a lot by putting OG there, aren't I? Fnatic or OG? Should probably be between those two teams. Because the problem I realise is this. I actually shouldn't care about the 3-0. I should just want to get the 5. So logically, I actually should just put Big there, if I think. But then again, it's swaggy to know that you got the 3-0. But wait a minute, that doesn't matter. Technically, you guys just want to see me get to the next phase, to have the Legends one, and not just be doing it on a text file like I was last time. So I guess I shouldn't really put them there. I should just put, like, Big in there, shouldn't I? Even though it's ridiculous. Like, why the fuck would Big get through? Let's just do it, though. Just for the sake of guaranteeing the 5. There we go. I think it's probably pretty ridiculous to do that. Like I say, I would probably pick the way I have if you want to guarantee the coin. But if you just want to go for, like, the perfect day, I would say to put Fnatic or Mouse or OG as your team here. By the way, Furia also not a bad 3-0 team. It's just the problem is I don't want to waste, like, Furia as my 3-0 when they're going to get through. But they're definitely not a safe team to go 3-0, ironically. So there we go. Those are my picks. Lock them in. I think I'm pretty happy with those. I don't think I'm getting 8 because the big one's pretty harsh. But I think there's a very good chance I could get 7. Oh, no, not 9, rather. I could see myself getting 8, though. There's a world where these go and I get all of these down here. I don't favour a lot of the underdogs. I know underdogs nearly always do. There's always 1 or 2 underdogs come through a Swiss system and 1 or 2 other teams. Obviously, you're all going to think it's Cloud9 and fucking Fury or whatever. Maybe one of those teams fails, but I like to just lock the big teams in. I think I'm pretty confident with this. This video was kindly supported by Ahmed Hadjou, Hades GOUD, Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Adam Ochs, Animosity, Bot Pounder 420, Jensen Goh, Kovacevicd, Pacy, Tobias Bernasconi, Tosh, Torin, and as always, a special thanks goes out to my main man, Jerky's Minion. Would you like to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Would you like to ask a question in one of those monthly AMAs where sometimes I roast people? Do you want teasers to find out who the guests are for upcoming shows and interviews I'm doing? Maybe you want to be part of one of those cool, lengthy esports discussions that I have. Well, if any of those perks sound tantalizing to you, put your money where your mouth is and join the Skrilluminati today, where? Via the Patreon link in the description box below.